Poor Rachel was saved. There was a girl called Rachel. She was 14 years old when the event in this story took place. She was a poor orphan girl. Her mother died long ago when she was just 2 years old. After the death of her mother, she was taken to her grandmother, who lived in a village far away. 2 years later, her father married a new wife. The new wife's name was Clara. She was a very wicked woman. Clara gave birth to a child, a pretty girl they called Rosaline. Rosaline was 4 years younger than Rachel. The father was happy when Rosaline was born. The mother herself was glad. When Rachel was 6 years old, she came back to live with her father and his new wife and daughter. The father was very happy. He hoped to build a happy family. But 2 years later, Rachel's loving father also died. The poor girl became an orphan. She had neither father nor mother again. She was all alone in the wide world. Now, it was her stepmother Clara who became her new guardian. The woman was wicked to her. She treated her like a slave. She made her work like a jackass from early morning to very late in the night. She gave her no breathing space. It was all work, and kicks and slaps for any mistake Rachel made. It was Rachel, the poor orphan, who swept the floor of all the rooms and surroundings. It was Rachel, the poor orphan, who washed all the dishes and pots used by every member of the family. It was Rachel, the poor orphan, who washed Clara's dirty clothes and those of Rosaline, her daughter too. It was Rachel, the poor orphan, who fetched water from distant wells and also firewood for their cooking. For every little mistake, Clara would beat her without mercy. For every little delay, Clara would curse her without a stop. "You bad girl! You lazy thing! You never do well! You dirty imp! Get out of my sight!" Clara would shout at her. Rachel would cry and cry, with no one to comfort her. And Rosaline would laugh and laugh every time Rachel was beaten. She would mock her, she would jeer her and sneer arrogantly at her. "See how big your mouth is! See how you gruntle like a pig! Rachel, you are a dirty girl!" Rachel would just continuing to cry. There was nothing she could do for Rosaline. When Clara and Rosaline ate, they ate the best of food, but Rachel had no choice. She had only their leftovers to eat. And when there were no leftovers, she made do with soaked gari and water without even sugar for taste. Her skin was thick and scaly. She looked as thin as a rake. Rosaline attended the best school that was in the neighborhood. But for poor Rachel, they had made her stop going to school ever since her poor father died. On every Saturday, Rosaline would put on fine dresses with expensive hat on her head. She would also wear high-heeled shoes to match. She would attend a party downtown. On every Sunday, Rosaline would dress like a princess in clothes poor Rachel washed and ironed. She would go to church to worship. Poor Rachel would stay at home, scrubbing toilets and washing bathrooms. She would also polish furniture and louvers till they shone. Nobody seemed to remember her in the house of her wicked guardian. Her grandmother was long dead too, and there was no near relation to whom she could run for help. It looked like there was no help for Rachel. Who would save her from her wicked stepmother? One day, somebody told Clara that there was a medicine man who bought little children for the sum of 500,000 naira per head. They said the medicine man used the children for money-making ritual. Clara needed money. She wanted to buy a big car. She wanted to make her business bigger. She wanted to send Rosaline to the best school. She wanted to build a beautiful house of her own. She also wanted expensive jewelries and fine clothes for match. So, she made up her mind to sell poor Rachel to the wicked medicine man. She went to that medicine man and made an arrangement with him. She told him in whispers, "Tomorrow morning just before noon, I will send the girl to you. She will tell you she comes from me. Do whatever you like to her. 2 hours later, I will send my own daughter to you. Give her the money you promise. Wrap it up well for her, so that nobody would know it is money she carries for me." The medicine man nodded his head. "I have heard you, Madam Clara. When the first girl comes, I will use her for my rituals. But when the second girl comes, I will give her 500,000 naira. She will bring the money fast to you." The following day, in truth, Clara called Rachel to her. She told her to go to the medicine man. "Come here, you dirty she-goat. Go fast to the marketplace, to the house of Tiba the medicine man. Tell him you come from me. Tell him to do as he promised." Rachel started on her way to the house of the medicine man. Along the way, she saw some magicians. They were singing, dancing, jumping, and doing many wonderful things. Rachel was happy she could watch. She had not been this free for a long time. She decided to follow them and enjoy herself. She followed them from place to place. She followed them from house to house. She followed them from street to street. For a very long time, she followed them. She had completely forgotten where her stepmother sent her. 2 hours after she left the house, Clara called her daughter Rosaline. She told her to go to the medicine man. "Tell him you come from me. Tell him to do as he promised." Rosaline did as she was told. She went to the medicine man. She was the first to arrive there. The medicine man thought she was Rachel. He took her into his shrine and used her for his rituals. 2 hours later, the magicians had finished their show. They went to their different homes. The audience also went away. It was only then that Rachel remembered where her stepmother sent her. Fast and quickly, quickly and fast, she ran all the way to the medicine man and told him, "I come from Madame Clara. She said you should do as you promised." "Good," the medicine man replied. He went into his shrine and brought out a big bag. The bag contained the 500,000 naira for Clara. "Take this to your mother," he said. "Tell her I have done as I promised." Rachel took the bag of money and put it on her lucky head. She went home to wicked Clara. She was afraid she would be beaten because she had wasted much time following the magicians all about. But when the woman saw her coming with the bag of money on her head, she knew the worst had happened. She knew her daughter, Rosaline, was already dead and gone. She started to cry even before Rachel came to her. She rolled herself in the mud. She pulled at her hair so hard, she tore her clothes into pieces and cursed herself without a stop. And when people came to her asking why she was crying so hard, she told them her story. Nobody pitied her. Instead, they mocked and sneered at her. "Fine, Madame Clara," they said. "It serves you just fine. God is not wicked like you." Some neighbors took the right step. They invited the police. They got Madame Clara arrested. She led them to the medicine man, who also was arrested without delay. The two of them were charged to court. The judge considered their case. The medicine man was condemned to death while Madame Clara was sent to jail for 7 years jail term. The news was broadcast near and far. Poor Rachel became a star. Her story was told and retold in every part of the world. Soon, a kind-hearted couple heard her pitiable story. They came to our little town and adopted poor Rachel. After all documentations and everything that should be done, they took her to England, where she was given the best education. Today, Rachel is no longer poor. She is no longer an orphan girl eating people's leftovers. She is now a medical consultant for the United Nations, under the umbrella of UNICEF. UNICEF is an arm of the United Nations that is charged with the responsibility of caring for children of the world. Its full meaning is United Nations International Children's Emergency Fund. Rachel is now very busy helping poor children, once like her, from every part of the world to succeed. And God had been so kind, poor Rachel was saved.